Hey everybody, Zach again, welcome back. So let's start talking about our ADOMS a little more in depth. The previous slide deck, we kind of talked a little bit about how maybe you might want to use them and global versus shared policies versus things like that. We're really going to start to get into those details here with this slide deck. So in the world, you're going to see different ADOMS. And like we said at the beginning, they're not configured by default. So you have to go into the 40 manager and configure your various ADOMS. Now, what I have here on the screen is from the 40 manager demo. We're going to go back to the demo after we get through the slides. So the way this is work, I'm going to show these to you through the slide deck, and then we're going to jump over on the lab, and through their demo environment, we're going to show it to you live and show you exactly what you can get into logging into the 40 manager itself. So here you see multiple ADOMS. This is where you will configure your different ADOMS. Now, how you configure these ADOMS is really up to you, because what you have to consider is when you're doing your ADOMS, your firmware, your type, your mode, your management, your device selection, your policy checks, your auto push, your different types of status. All these are configured inside of your ADOM. Now, really start to think about what you're talking about here, because now you have a lot of flexibility on what you configure with these ADOMS, and then add on top of this flexibility the ability to create user accounts that only have specific access. Now you're getting entertaining with your configurations. Don't get too cute though, because you'll lock yourself out. Not that I've ever done that before, but I just heard that if you do, you might lock yourself out. But anyways, admin accounts. This is defined as system admin versus restricted admins. So maybe you're going to have a global admin, but inside of your ADOMS, you've created subdomains, virtual domains, things along that lines, and you wanted restricted admins that only have access to particular domains. And you can do this. This is really cool where you start getting into like your SOC and your NOC and different things like that. Maybe you want your security operations center to be able to do configuration, but your network operations center only to be able to do read only. This is where you're able to go in and do all this type stuff. You can control admin access via profiles, host, add ADOMS. What I mean by host is you can say if you're not logged into a certain subnet, certain devices, jump box, whatever, you can't admin anything. So different security procedures and policies based upon your company's security posture. You're able to authenticate and authorize via external servers, Active Directory. So this will be a common thing that you'll see out there where you will tie your authentication to your AD, which now also allows you to do two-factor authentication. Whether you're doing like Duo, pushes, SMS text, things along that lines. Now, because you can authenticate to another server, here you go. Configure admin accounts. As we see here on screen, multiple admin accounts. And as you see here, what do we have? Multiple different types of users, restricted users, admin, super users, all these different types of users that you can configure on your domain for specific uses. Again, what is right? It's up to you. What is your system? What is your security posture? Are you a large environment where you need to restrict access, or are you a small shop where you have, lack of better terms, God access? It's really up to you. What they're showing you here is the ability to go in and make all kind of restrictions based upon the needs of your business. You can view an administrator inside here. This is where we're going to be able to go in and change and restrict and lock down the user based upon the requirements inside of your user admin. This here is your admin, obviously. You're able to go in. Now, what you can do is configure various admin profiles. So you can configure an administrator or user account and attach them to a profile. This allows you to create a profile and use multiple users at the same profile. So if you need to change access or rules or permissions or whatever for an entire group, you just change it in a profile, and everybody using that profile gets that type of access. So your basic access here, system admin, you got everything. You are the man, the woman, whatever. You have access everywhere. Now, You do have a restricted access here where you see this here, everything is restricted. You have limited access where you can go in and do some things and not others. Inside of restricted, this is where we can go here and make this restricted for certain areas, not restricted for others. Multiple admins and security. Guess what? You can have lots of different admins on your system. That's good. And it's also can be challenging because what you have here is you can have up to 10 trusted hosts that applies both your GUI and CLI. This is what you can set up for your access to admin your network. This is what they're talking about here is your trusted points, your trusted networks. Maybe it's a specific jump box that you want to access. Maybe everybody in the what you call the network admin subnet has access. Maybe you don't want to allow anybody that comes in from external VPNs access. So you don't list that here. So what you do is external VPNs have to authenticate to a jump server. And then from that jump server, they can admin your firewalls and your 40 managers. Lots of different options there based upon what the needs of the business are. Now, you can monitor and manage based ADOMS. You can increase your security and efficiency. You'll have super users, which will have full access to your ADOMS. You have the ability to specify your external validation, Active Directory, which is your common point here. So see here, we see our common names, our user CN, things like that, so that we can go in and set this up for our external validation for authentication. We can monitor our admin sessions. So we can go in here and look and say who is adminning our network, who is not, who's logged in. These types of things are very important because what you run into is the potential for conflict on your system. So multiple admins logged into an ADOM at the same time. This is normal. You get into a large environment, multiple people doing multiple updates at the same time. The challenge is if I'm doing an update and I'm in and you come in behind me and you do an update and I'm unaware of your update, we can have some conflicts. This does happen all the time. So what happens is 40 Manager has the ability to lock this down and disable this. So you can disable concurrent admin access by what is called admin locking. Now, when you perform the admin lock, you can do it by GUI, you can do it by CLI as the commands you see on the screen here. But what they're talking about here is if I'm logged in, performing updates, and I started at 7 a.m. in the morning, and you come in at 8, and I'm still logged in performing updates, you can log in and you have read-write access, and you can see everything that's going on, but you can't change anything. That stops the ability of anybody making changes and overwriting your work. So what they've done here is they consider this workspace mode. So what they've done here is instead of you having to log out, they allow you to log in, but you can lock the ADOM. So what they're talking about here is they consider what they call workspace mode. If I log in early in the morning, because I'm kind of a morning person, and I'm making changes, I will lock the ADOM. So there's a lock status. You can go see, and I'll show you this here in the lab in a little bit. There's a lock status. The gray is the ADOM is unlocked. You can do whatever you want. Green is locked by you. You are authorized to make the changes. Red is locked by another admin. If it's locked by another admin, you cannot make changes. This stops everybody from overwriting each other's changes. So this is good and bad because if somebody locks it and leaves it locked, then nobody else can get into it and make changes. So you have to be mindful about this process of how you're using it. So to lock your device or policies, you select the device or policy package that you want to lock. You right click it, select lock. And like I said, if you lock it, the lock is green, and somebody else locks it, the lock is red. When you're done, you right click and select unlock. The system will remove the device or policy if the ADOM is locked. Now, what they're talking about here is the ability to go in and out and make sure that the policy is locked. and unlocked as appropriate. Again, this is the ability to go in and lock things to make sure that people are not overwriting each other's changes. This happens far too often. Far too often are you going to get in there and there's going to be something locked or unlocked, and you make a change and somebody comes behind you and it overwrites your changes. Now, different types of ADOM versions, each one has specific firmware. So you can manage different firmware versions. So the same ADOM can manage different versions. So if you have an ADOM, you can manage different versions. If you're 6, 4, and 7, however, not 5X with 7. So basically what you're saying here is your old 5X is not going to be managed the same as your 6, 4, and 7. So your 40 Manager 7 supports ADOM 6, 2, 6, 4, and 7. So you see what we're doing there? 5 is not supported by 40 Manager 7. If you have 40 Manager 7, you will not support and make changes to your 5.x firmware. You will need to upgrade those. Now, when you go to upgrade, it's not really that big of a deal. So you're going to go into and make sure what version you are. Sometimes there is a path upgrade that you need to follow. Sometimes it's just straight put in the new code and do a reboot. Really, you need to check the documentation because as I speak, they may be changing the process. So make sure you go in and at any time before you do any type of upgrades, and this is not just with 40 Manager, this is with everything. Anytime you go do an upgrade, read the latest and greatest documentation from the manufacturer. At this time, what they talk about is you can upgrade ADOM after you've upgraded the firmware of all devices. Starting with 7, you can upgrade ADOM 6.2 to 6.4 without updating all devices in the ADOM from 40 OS from 6.2 to 6.4. So again, what they're talking about here is the ADOM versus the 40 OS, which is your 48 operating system. There's different rules that you need to follow every time that you do upgrades. So when you do upgrade, before you upgrade, you want to install any pending packages, settings, changes, things on that lines. Always do your settings and upgrades, or your settings and pushes, I should say. Make sure that all your configs and everything are synced. Also, as a good practice everywhere, before you do any upgrade, you do a backup. Always do a backup before you do any type of upgrade and store that backup off-site so that in the event of any type of mishap, you have that backup config to roll to. After you've upgraded the devices and ADOMS, make sure you do an installation preview, identify any changes caused by the upgrade. Where I find this comes prevalent is VPNs. I've seen too many times over the years that anytime you upgrade, especially if you are in a cross-vendor environment. Just did this the other day. We upgraded a Cisco device that was connected to a FortiGate device because of a quirk in the system and the upgrades. We had to go look through the logs and we found something that we need to make changes to accommodate that upgrade because of the code versions. So make sure that you go in, look at your logs, look at any updates that you have to be able to make sure that anything you've done, specifically in the VPN environment, is not affected by your upgrade. Make sure you click and make sure you check that all the changes are acceptable. Yes, this is what I want to do. Migrate all your devices. Shared policies. This is what we talked about. Shared policy packages will not move to a new ADOM. Shared policies stay local to an ADOM, not a global policy, a shared policy. So shared policies do not move from ADOM to ADOM. Global policies potentially will. Perform your input policy, which you're going to go in and check, make sure everything's good. And we're going to say, yes, this is what we want to do. Have a nice day. So let's go talk about that real quick. Kind of breeze over configuration, some of the different admin accounts and permissions, concurrent access to workspace type stuff. So let's jump over on the lab. Let's pull these up and actually look at these and show these different things to you. So give me a second. Let's jump over on the lab and let's get started on this. All right, everybody, let's jump over on the demo. As we talked about before, 40 Manager 40 demo. This is where we're going to go. It takes us to our login page. Our login and password to this is demo. And this is a free demo that everybody, I would highly encourage you to jump out onto this. And wow, looks like they've changed the background a little bit here. So this is pretty much expected inside of any free demo that you're going to get from any vendor. Things are going to change on a regular basis. So this will be a little different in the slide deck. So we'll go into our ADOM here. So we're in our root ADOM. As we can see up here, we are root. Shows it right here. This is our login. We are logged in as demo. So what we want to do here is go into our system settings. This is where we kind of start configuring things. So all ADOMs, this here, here's our security fabric ADOM right here. Root. This is the one we're in. If we were going to create a new, this would be up here labeled as create new. Now, I want to show you real quick, and we'll come back to this, but what's going on? We look at our administrator. Demo, I am the demo user. When I look here, I don't have access to anything other than read. So it is listed inside of our profile right here. It's our demo profile. See how everything here in the middle is read only. This is why inside the demo, when you log in, you can go read everything, but you can't change anything. And that plays into the whole discussion of what we're doing here, because you're going in to your ADOM. You have your ADOM here. We're logged in as demo. We cannot create a new, but we can view it. The name is root. The devices inside the ADOM are here. So if we look, there's different types of devices. We can look and see what platform they are, different types of FortiGates to VMs, things along that lines. Centralized management, 40 access points, 40 switches, different types of things here. This is all configured inside of our ADOMS. And we see we are 7.2. That goes back to when we were talking about our upgrade processes being 7 and above. This is where your ADOMs are at. So in here, we saw there's our VDOMs, our virtual domains. That's exactly what we're talking about. Here they are. Right there. Now, when we start talking about our admins, our administrators, here we go. We have two, the admin and the demo. So the admin we can view, can't change anything. But this here's the name is admin. It's the local account. Administrative domain, all ADOMs. We do have the ability to, if we wanted to, we're able to go in here and specify what ones we want it to be an admin for, or specify what ones we don't want it to be an admin for. Here's our profile, super user. Just like if we go into the demo user, and we see the admin profile as demo. So what I want you to get here, guys, is this is where you go in and you start creating your different types of administrators for different types of ADOMs, for different types of roles, different types of admin profiles, things along that lines. It all here inside of your system settings. This is where things start to get yours administrative based upon the needs of your business. Now your profile here they are. These are your basics, the ones that are configured here. So the demo, we saw restricted user. We can look here and look, restrictive user, they can't do none of this stuff. They can look at the device manager. They can't change anything. I can't even see it. They can't add, delete, edit device groups. They can look at different configs, but they can't change anything. So this here is all basically look at some stuff you can't even look at. You come to a standard user, little bit more stuff. As we see here, we have read-write access for your device manager, things on that line. So maybe this is over in the SOC. These guys here, they have some admin access, but not full admin access. And go back to that one. Even here, it tells you standard user profiles have no system privileges enabled, but have read-write access for all device privileges. So maybe this is in your SOC where you're managing devices. You have full device access. You can do whatever you need to manage the customer, but you can't manage anything on the system. You have super users? There you go. Everything. Full access to everything. You have package users. You can read basically everything. You can make some changes. You have a no permission user, which not really sure why you would do this, but it means you have no access to anything. And if you have no access to anything, why would you even create it? Now, what I want you to get here is each one of these you saw has different types of access. So with this different type of access, what you can do is come in here and clone a profile and then modify it. So maybe you have a standard user that you want to be able to read the system settings. So maybe this is a SOC personnel. This is a supervisor that needs to have read access into like license management. Maybe they need to look at the system settings, but you don't want them to be able to change the system settings and things along that lines. Maybe you want to modify this because this is a management group and they need to have read a little bit of system admin, but you don't want them to be able to do any type of changes on the devices for various reasons. They're management. They need to be able to go look. They need to be able to report things on that lines, but you don't want them changing things. So you could create your own individual profile here and assign that to their account as needed. So really, if you start thinking about this, this is flexible. This really gives you the ability to do a lot of flexible control based upon the needs of your business. Here's workspace mode. This is what we talked about. Workspace all day, all ADOMS, per VDOMS, workflow all ADOMS. It's disabled here. I can't really change anything because I don't have access. It's read only. And this here starts to talk about how this would work. Don't think I'll be, well, it does let me select it. Cool. Right, same policy package, different administrators can lock and make configuration changes on different policies concurrently. So you see here, it gives a good description on what each one is. And then you can create a new workflow approval. So here's approval. So what this is saying here is if you have a junior administrator, you can set this up where they can basically stage changes, but if it's not approved, it doesn't get pushed. Different types of remote authentication. Here's some of your admin stuff. And if you looked here, you saw the screen changed, right? Admin into your environment, HTTP, HTTPS, things on that lines. And some type of SAML stuff. So also here in the event log, we talked about this. You can go in here and see who is logged in, who has made changes, things on that lines. This becomes real handy when a system just breaks in the middle of the day. So nothing happens without a reason. So when something just breaks in the middle of the day, you'll come back in here, you'll log and you'll say, what time did this break? And then you'll be able to come in and look and see if anybody potentially made a change. What you'll find a lot of times is things inadvertently happen. I mean, technically it's somebody's fault, but it's not intentional. Especially when you get people that are just getting into the field, they're excited, they want to be useful, they want to be helpful, and they're doing everything they can to help the organization, but they just don't understand everything in the grand scheme yet because they don't have enough time on bench. So they'll come in, they'll make a change and something will break, and you'll come in there and you'll see, hey, at 8:15:16, admin configuration change event. And you can come in and look at it. This is just a notice, and you'll be able to tell what happened. Here we go. Here's the change. and you'll see if this change matches your current issue that you're working. And when you do, you'll have a username. You'll be able to come in, look at it. You'll be able to contact that individual and say, hey, why'd you do this? Blah, 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 and figure it out. And that will assist you in troubleshooting. So just want to give you a quick rundown, show you where stuff is configured and where it's at and how it's configured. Like I said, I'd highly, highly encourage you guys, especially you test takers, to come in here and really look at your documentation that you're studying for your testing and be able to come in here and click the button. That's going to help you immensely with your testing. But with that, we're kind of done with this. We'll jump over on the next slide deck and kind of get you rolling. Till then, talk to you guys later.